Hello, all the Getting Dicey people. Glad that you could all join us. Thank you to Reagan and Getting Dicey for allowing us to take over their stream temporarily. My name is Zach. I'm the Dungeon Master for the podcast Dungeons and Dipshits, and I've gathered a bunch of other Dungeon Masters here so we can talk Dungeon Mastering for podcasts and streams in particular, to give you guys kind of a behind-the-scenes view of how we think about DMing and what we love about doing it and what sort of, I guess, got us to gravitate towards that role. So it's just going to be a bit of a roundtable discussion. We're all going to ask some questions of one another and then discuss it and debate it, and hopefully it'll be relatively interesting, I think.
Exciting.
Yeah. Right afterwards.
Let's go.
So why don't we all start off with just mentioning your name and what podcast you are affiliated with. We might as well start in the top left with Aki.
Hi. Nice intro.
Hey.
I'm Aki. I'm sort of the outsider in this table, I would say. I'm not with any podcast at the moment. I'm trying to build one. But yeah, that's about me. I've been DMing for close to 8-9 months. I recently got into D&D about a year and a half ago. And it's been a really good outlet. So and it's been especially interesting to be a DM coming from the film industry. So it's really I'm really looking forward to see what perspective everyone else has and have a nice chat.
Cool.
Awesome. Azul, you the masked bandit in the middle there. You might as well go next.
Good day, everyone. My name's Azul. I'm from the podcast called Don't Forget Your Towel. We are an RPG podcast with a lofty goal. The goal is to play every RPG in existence. We're nowhere near our goal, and we feel like we're going to die before it happens, but, wish us luck.
Oh, man, that is seriously ambitious.
I know. We decided to just go straight up there.
Yeah.
And if you want to play every one that's ever been made, well, what about the ones that we've made that you don't know about yet?
Oh, well, the problem is the more we realize that they're so Kickstarter has so many RPGs coming out every day. We didn't think this through.
Yeah.
Yep.
Fantastic. Next, Charlie, you're up.
Hi, I'm Charlie. I'm one of the DMs in Season Quest. We switch around for each season. I was the first one of Winter. We go through each different season, and then after we're done with the 4 seasons that we all know and love, we're gonna get a little bit wild with different kinds of seasons. Yeah. We'll look forward to it.
Oh.
So, the season of love, the season of allergies, the season of moon rocks.
Could be. Television seasons, possibly something like that.
That's cool.
Nice.
All right, Reagan. Everyone knows who you are, but you might as well introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm the DM for Getting Dicey. We're currently going through the Curse of Stride. We're up to the 40th session. We will be playing our 40th session of that tomorrow night, where the crew have come up against their first pack of werewolves. So they're kind of blocked off from progressing anywhere without dealing with this threat. So could be pretty awesome.
Finally, Russell.
Hi, I'm Russell Kirkby. My stream is called Sidarhael, and I run a campaign called the Vein Gate Chronicles. So yeah, we're at about, what are we up to? At our 8th episode, not including a whole bunch of prequels and other nonsense that we got up to before that. We're pretty much figuring it out as we go along, and we're slowly getting there. We're ironing out the technical issues as we go, and I think we're actually having some forward momentum at last, which is nice. So yeah. Awesome. And it's awesome to meet these guys, and especially Zach, our host, who noticed that our host is invisible.
Yeah.
What's up? Right?
Yes, yeah. Well, I guess to round out the introductions, I'm Zach. Like I said, I'm the Dungeon Master for Dungeons and Dipshits, and my laptop is not grunty enough to do a video stream, so I am coming to you invisibly. So I'm sorry, but you should also be grateful for that, because you haven't seen my face. Anyway, I figure we might as well rip into it. Aki, what's your question that you've got?
Well, my question was pretty broad in a sense. I was looking to want to ask what is your approach when it comes to world building, and how do you like to start off your campaigns? Like, what is the first encounter that the group has, or how the party comes together, and that sort of details? Yeah.
Sure. Actually, I should probably clarify for all the people watching. Each person is going to ask a question of another person, and it's just in an alphabetical list. So Aski is asking this question to me, and then we'll just throw it out for wider discussion. So I mean, world building. We're all DMs here. I think everybody loves a bit of world building. Personally, I like to start on the micro scale. You know, start small, and then expand out as is required. I mean, when I started out with Tolmar, I just had one idea, which was, what if the Industrial Revolution was powered by magic instead of steam? And that was what I wanted to explore. So I figured, hey, we'll have this homebrewed kind of campaign, and you know, using the 5th edition core rules and all that sort of stuff. I didn't want to homebrew too much, but really just exploring the idea of magic and technology coming together. But yeah, I liked to start small, start on that micro scale, and then build as it goes.
Right.
Yeah.
Nice. What about starting off your campaign? Like, how do you like to bring the party together?
Oh, look, it's a cliche, but
Tavern.
it's a cliche for a reason. You start in a tavern. Yeah, I think. I mean, why not? I mean, yes, it's cliche. Yes, it's hackney, but cliches are cliches for a reason. And there's way more interesting things, I think, to put a lot of thought into than trying to come up with some new and exciting way of introducing a bunch of characters. So get it out of the road, and then let the characters go on their way and have their fun.
Completely
It is
agree.
just such a perfect way for each character to really get into themselves and introduce, and then get into a fun bar fight and move on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah, I mean-
everybody says the tavern scene is a cliche, but there's so much you can do with that, just like considering the whole of the tavern and what can happen within there. Yeah.
I mean, one of the first encounters that two of our characters had were inspired by Monty Python, were some cross-dressing lumberjacks. And why not? I mean, you know, when you start in a tavern, it does give you that kind of freedom to do those wacky and wild sort of things.
Right.
How did that work for your crew? Zach?
What do you mean?
Like, did they enjoy the that kind of industrial revolution, but on magic? And did they enjoy starting off in the tavern? How did that all unfold?
I think they enjoyed it. I mean, none of them have complained about it. And going through that, it's with that magic and industrial thing going together, that's allowed me to bring in things like airships and cars and elevators and all that sort of stuff, and without having to hand wave it away too much. But I like to think that that the cast have really helped flesh out the world by their actions and by their own ideas too. Because it's not just me who's building everything. You know, I've built the sandpit; they get to play in it. And if they've got ideas for making the sandpit even better, well, then who am I to say no?
But you get to choose. You get to choose how hot the sand is.
It's very true. It's very, very true.
That resonates quite a lot with me, Zach, because what I love doing is making every single action that the players do have some kind of impact in the world. So whenever they may offhandedly mention some kind of bar or like some kind of character they met in the past, just immediately make them a pivotal character in the campaign. Some kind of impact. It's just amazing what you can make the players give you as well in terms of what to do.
It almost happens accidentally a lot, where, like you said, a player will just mention that they have this uncle who knows about steam engines, and then suddenly you've got this person coming out of nowhere, killing them just for his character's sake, and you know.
Yeah. So and you know it's an integral part of one of the players' backstories is the whole airship thing, the whole airship industry.
Love an airship.
Obviously, I'm not. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if you guys have listened to Dungeons and Dipshits, but we had a major NPC in the part of the airship that they had, which I thought, well, let's just have Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, because how else are you gonna get a lot of travel done and also have airship pirates? So we had this sort of, it was a car, but now it's also an airship, and I'm just figuring out how to turn it into a submarine as well.
Wow.
Brilliant. All right.
Well, what about the rest of you guys?
Cool.
Have you approached world building and like intro, like starting off the campaign? What is your approach?
I'm really lucky
Yeah.
because I just grab the Curse of Strahd book and I open it up and it's basically there. So my entire time as a DM has been we played through Lost Mine of Phandelver, we played through and we're playing through Curse of Strahd. So I don't know how people who make homebrew do it. I just don't get it. Like I can't comprehend how much work you need to put in, knowing how much work I already have to put in to make it. Yeah, it just, the amount of prep that I have to do just when something's pre-written, I feel is insane, versus having all of that before you even start what you need to do, what you need to build.
The thing is, you're just interpreting stuff though, and that's a lot of work in and of itself. Because you take something like Strahd and you've got to then figure out what's the spirit of what they're talking about and decipher it. And then you've also got to remember it all. Whereas if you make it up, you know what you've made up. You're
That's
pretty
fair.
intimate with it to begin with. And if you don't get it right, no one's going to know. You know, if you fuck up Strahd, someone's going to come along and go, that's there, no, that's wrong. That the town of Valaki is not actually there. It's over here and it's got a you know, and you're going to get in the neck about that. But if you're like, well, I put this town here and make up a name for it, and, you know, you might not be there next week. No one's going to know the difference.
That's true.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. This is a bit of a controversial opinion, but I think that homebrew is easier than running like a pre-made campaign because it's so much
I'm
easier
with you on that, Azul. Absolutely.
Yeah,
I'm with you on that.
Like, I'm with Zach in that you start off in a micro idea. Just have like one, what I usually do at least is just have the one plot line that I want and then start off with the players engaging with it. And the more we play, the more content I'll just get,
Yeah.
you know, like the
You
players
tend to
just-
generate content through play.
Yeah.
That is really true. My approach to starting the whole is kind of similar to Zach in so much as I will start with a theme that is what I consider a theme to be an examination of a central question. And so the central question that I'm currently exploring is like how to bring the divine feminine back into the world. So there's this kind of feminist metatext to my game, which is the underlying sort of concept. And so everything feeds into that. So Sehanine Moonbow's been, her avatar's been destroyed in my world and sent to the abyss. And the player characters, their long end game is to return her to the world, which is a metaphor for us embracing feminism in our world.
Wow. That's deep as hell. That's awesome.
Right. So I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Charlie, how about you, man?
Yeah, I have a homebrew world that I've only ever run in. I started it maybe like 7 years ago, I think, and it came out because I was a poor Dunedin student and I couldn't afford any of the books, so I made it up. It was
You burned your last couch.
Exactly. The world is like Aelia, is what it's called, and basically it's I won't get into it too much, but like the thing about the homebrew for me is that the front load of the work was massive, just like starting out and trying to make everything up as the players are moving through it and just sort of playing catch up as they're going through it. But at this point, it's so much easier for me now because it's just like part of my brain, because I've been in this world, I've been making this world for almost a decade now.
Right.
It's like I've cut down my prepare time probably about like 50% at this point. Yeah. And for specific sessions, I typically just go, what conflict can I do? Small conflict, big conflict, campaign conflict. Just 3 of those, and then I'm pretty much set for the next 2 sessions.
Do you find that when you're playing you have players that want to play a particular race or something like that, or a particular faction or class or something specific, but usually factions or races, that ends up being your kind of opportunity to do a bunch of world building with that?
Absolutely. Yeah. You get that opportunity to customize and like see how it fits within your world, like putting little puzzle pieces together and just really enjoying that, that creativity of it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Cool. Any final comments on Aki's question? No,
it was a good question.
All right. Yeah, no, damn good question. Azul, you're up next, dude.
Yes, I don't remember who I'm asking this for, but essentially
you're asking Aki.
Gotcha. So Aki,
Yeah.
So generally when DMing in real life, when you're like face to face with people, you can use things like miniatures or just use your hands to describe and just increase the level of immersion for your players. But in the context of podcasts or streaming, I should say, as a DM, how do you tend to increase your level of immersion for players and your audience, or how do you plan to, Aki?
Well, what I usually like, even in real life, so I haven't DM'd on like a podcast, but I have done some online sessions, so I'm sort of familiar with like what are you asking about. And usually I don't use a lot of minis, and I usually try to go by like descriptions. I'm pretty descriptive when I'm DMing, and that sort of slows down the game a bit, but I'm usually indulgent in that sense, where I'm like, I want to describe things and how they're happening as much detailed as I can. And I also love building props, like for example, I like to make maps, and like if I'm giving out a book, I like to have a few pages typed out so they can read it rather than me telling them what they find and what they read.
That's cool. That's cool.
So in this I'm running 2 campaigns in the same world, and in one of those, the group finds a book with 26 items. So the quest is to find this person who has lived 26 different lives, and they have to find each item from each life. And it's just poems describing the item, 26 poems, and I wrote 26 poems and have the document ready to give them when they come in next session, so they can just read and decide which one they are going for. Are they decoding the poem to find out which item it is? So that also helps out. Like, for example, if I'm having a podcast, I can release something like that publicly for the audience to read as well, and then sort of be like, ooh, do I know this or do I know that? And like, have a
really
sort
cool.
of like edge to the characters, and it would sort of give a how do I put it, immersive feel to anyone watching, to have like something that they are also working on. It's a puzzle they are trying to solve as well. And I like to send out maps, and I add like details like names of people who cartographed it, names of people who have made it, and stuff like that, that could come up as characters or like be characters that they know before, so they can sort of like look over that. So I usually try to have like digital sources that I can send out, so that it's not something I'm really relying on to have physically. And plus, I find it much easier and cheaper rather to make stuff out on like Incarnate and like a Word document rather than.
I love Incarnate. Yeah.
It is an
building
awesome
out
tool.
like a mini and doing stuff. But yeah, that's.
Dude, that's
I think that's
wicked awesome. 26 poems, man. That's amazing.
I am trying to build a space map, but I can't find the right app for it. Because the other one I'm running is a Spelljammer themed one, and I'm thinking I want to build a space map, but
you don't have any spaces left in that, do you?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's gonna be a task, but maybe I'll get to it someday.
That's like.
Yeah. What about the rest? What do you?
Yeah. How about you
guys?
For me, getting people into it is like when I'm not podcasting, music is a really important part of it. Unfortunately, I can't be playing music over the microphone. It's gonna sound shit. So the other auditory way I do it is really stupid voices. I try to get as dumb with it as possible.
Yes.
You know, like small Russian goblins and high pitched giants and all that.
Yeah.
Yep, love that. You gotta. It gives a great opportunity to break stereotypes.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone thinks that dwarves speak with a Scottish accent.
They fucking do.
In the game that we play, the hill dwarves speak with really bad Dutch accents, just because why not?
What does a really bad Dutch accent actually sound like? I want to hear that.
Well, you see that all of the dwarves in the high wall, they all speak like this. It's
Oh
all
my gosh,
quite
that's amazing.
it's all quite good. Yes, we like to
Every
drink.
time we're laughing.
Yeah. I totally feel for that. I feel like putting silly voices and just even trying changing the intonation or just the the speed of the voice makes all the difference. Like our first episode, we had a dwarf that was based on Lemongrab from Adventure Time, so like a very high pitched voice like this. Yeah.
That must have been frustrating.
Oh, it was terrifying to do.
Do you ever get that where you start a character's voice and you're like, I'm gonna have to keep doing this fucking voice, god damn it.
All the time.
Yeah.
I usually try to like add like certain like keywords that they always repeat, so I remember what accent and how I'm saying
That's
it.
100% how I do it as
I have
well.
this like surfer dude character who just says yo at all start of all sentences, so I know okay, I need to say yo first. So and like then it sort of comes along, and you know how you're speaking.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a really, really effective way of keeping all of your accents in
Boxes.
check. Having
Good
that sort of
advice.
that key word, that trigger word that they and it's a characteristic of some people. Some people start sentences with the same word.
And it works with players too, to be honest. Like players,
Yeah.
some players that have a character that has an accent, like my friend Barry, he has a character called Philippe who always starts off by saying the word gratiano, and it just helps him get into character, for that one character.
A lot of my
That's
players also have like a key phrase that they use to get into voice, like a Irish phrase or something like that they kind of get deep into it. Yeah.
We have a Lucy in our podcast has a key phrase that she gets into for the summer quest, and it is I don't want to go to the beach. And I believe that has made about 50% of the time it just does get into the podcast, so look out for that.
Right.
How about you, Reagan? Running a module that so many people have run before, do you find yourself thinking, oh, I hope I'm going to voice Strahd right?
Nah. I do a little bit of prep for each of the voices. Like, so Lost Mine of Fandelver being the first chance I had to DM, at the very opening of that is like meeting goblins on a trail, right? And I was like, okay, I got to do something good for these guys. We're using webcams, we're using Roll20 and stuff like that. I don't want to just give them just a stupid voice. I mean, I'll 100% give them a stupid voice. But I introduced straight away the idea of like face overlays as well, and I hadn't warned any of them that I was going to do that. I was just like, I just said, hey, look, we're going to do something, and hopefully it works out really well. And so my thing, I don't have the goblin on me right now, but I throw up an overlay and I just put my mouth here. And I'll become Ismark from Curse of Strahd and stuff like that. So it's a fun way to help them not just see my face for every single character. It helps makes them forget that I'm behind the face. Just to help them just that little bit, because I can't be there in front of them, getting up there and putting on mannerisms and everything to the same extent. So I try and throw that up. And then, of course, you got all the Roll20 stuff like tokens and maps. And I use Sirenscape to help set the scene for different environments that we're in and stuff like that. So there's definitely a bit of work every week going into just preparing the things needed to make sure that they have like a really decent experience, that it's not just, they're not just looking at a webcam of me and then a map the whole time. I feel like in person you can kind of I don't know, with your miniatures and stuff. I've got a friend that uses like miniatures and smoke machines and all this kind of stuff to really give his map like a lot of life. And I was like, how do I bring at least some of that? So it's not just my face and voice for, I don't know, like 3 years every Monday.
Yeah. Right.
Fantastic. Awesome. Yeah. Any final thoughts on Azul's question?
Oh, I had something that I was looking to bring up. How does everyone use sound effects? Like, so I've usually had like, if I have explosions, I usually like bang on the table while the characters are conversing. And do you guys do anything interesting with like sound effects or any?
Scaring the players like that is a great idea, especially in real life games. But I find it's a little bit too. Technically, it can be kind of dodgy if you're doing it online. You can blow sound levels and you know have issues, technical issues from it.
Yeah. So how do you guys handle that? Like, how do you guys bring in like sound effects? Or, like, say,
I mean, for me, when I'm doing Dungeons and Dipshits, it's all done in post. All of the music, any sound effects I want to add on. I've got my vocal track, and I've got the 4 players' vocal tracks, and then there's a 6th track which is just for music. Music and ambiences and all that sort of stuff. Sometimes the players will come to the table and they'll make their own sound effects. For example, Blake, who plays Brim Spellsling, he's a warlock, and I can't do it. We had this conversation on the podcast. Any time that Brim casts a spell, he does a sort of sound, but he does it with the whole like finger in your cheek, and so it sounds really really cool. So anytime Brim casts a spell, Blake will make that noise. And that's just something that's become endemic. But any other sound effects or music, all done in post.
It's the same.
Lucy's also very good at that pop sound.
Yeah,
she makes it happen a lot.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
I started putting like in this campaign in Curse of Strahd, I started adding in sound effects and music and chanting where chanting needs to be and stuff like that, all in post, until I realized that my players are getting none of it. And I'm really only putting it in for listeners, which is fine, which is great. But the whole point of us playing is so that us as a group of people can get really into it. So I, started looking at things like Sirenscape that has effect buttons and stuff like that, and just making sure that levels and stuff worked beforehand. And then there's things like, knocking on doors. I'd be just knocking on my desk and making sounds with anything that's around me. The sound of like skeletal bones. I downloaded like a little xylophone app on my phone, which went as like on it next to the mic, at certain points. I really wanted to make it. I really wanted my players to hear that, because to me that's really as important as describing how something looks. If they're not hearing it, it might take away a little bit. So yeah, I try and do that now. Plus, it's a lot less work afterwards when it comes.
That's true.
I just make sound effects like vocally.
Yeah, that works. Yeah.
Make stupid noises, and I'm not going to do it now though.
Yeah, well, I mean, you should totally try. Give us a sound effect.
I like to do animal noises. Actually, I've had comments about my animals.
It's nice.
Yeah,
Awesome.
that's pretty cool.
Oxen and things like that. Flippity cloppity noises.
I definitely try to do as much voice sounds when I'm playing in real life with players, but when it comes to Don't Forget Your Towel, it's kind of like Zach. We do everything, all the sound in post-production, several tracks and music and effects, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, all right. Any final thoughts, gentlemen? No.
Each of these conversations could probably go on forever.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I'm just wary that we don't want to be sitting here talking for forever.
We could put a limit on it.
We do have a viewer request to do our best animal voices, though.
Our best animal noises.
Ooh.
Wow.
All right, I'll go for it. I'm gonna do a sort of jungle bird sound.
Your microphone.
Your mic
didn't pick up. Your microphone went no.
Did not?
I'm not.
You need a limiter.
How's that? Was that better?
Yep.
Yeah, I think previously it just like peaked it completely out. Just it's not happening.
Yeah, your poor
Got
microphone
people
just
across the street looking in the window right now.
I do terrible animal voices, but I guess the best I could do is meowing like a cat. It's like meow, meow.
Well, I did introduce, I think it was in episode 16, the artificer for the secret organization that my players work for has a steel defender, but in the shape of an orangutan. And
nice.
he just had a very much a sort of sound, which was quite fun.
Right.
That's
I
pretty cool.
have a wolf sort of growl that I do while I'm playing in a friend's campaign. I can probably give that a shot. It's like sort of like when it's like getting ready to attack.
Growling, drooling kind of noises.
Awesome, love it. All right, Charlie, what's your question for Azul?
All right. So my question is, when you're preparing for a podcast campaign, do you plan out pretty much the whole story, or I guess action ahead of time, or do you go more sandbox with it?
Ooh, so we on our podcast we play one shots for the most part, so just one session things. But to answer your question, I try to plan as little as possible and prepare as much as possible, in the sense that you don't want to, even though it's a podcast, from my perspective at least, you don't want to kind of railroad your players too much. So I prepare for some possibilities that the players may do something terrible or out of the box. But obviously, most of the time, you start off something, you have your main plot, and then your players kind of just completely kick you 20 miles or 20 kilometers in the opposite direction. So definitely more sandboxy, I'd say. Yeah.
I plan by making NPCs personally.
Yeah.
You know, you plan your NPCs, you plan their motivations, you plan their connections and their relationships and their motives and such. I think I said that already. And you've got a story, you know, that your players are going to go in there and the NPCs are going to react to everything the players do in a realistic kind of a way. Yeah. For me personally, have you guys ever played Vampire the Masquerade? There's an amazing module called the Chicago Chronicles, which is about this thick. And it has the most incredible charts of NPC relationships in it that will teach you taught me at least, how to make NPC relationships work and how to make that sort of behind the scenes story happen in incredibly clever ways. Anyway, that's just my opinion.
No, I think you're completely right, to be honest. I like NPCs are I would consider NPCs to be one of the most important things. Like, you kind of need to have their motivations and their personalities set up. Like, that's a minimum.
Right.
Especially
if you're sandboxing. I mean, that's the whole point of a sandbox, isn't it? It's
exactly.
You have something for the players to react to, and vice versa. It's all to and fro.
So what I've got is I've got sort of the main overarching story, mostly planned out. But in the individual story arcs or beats, the players have got total freedom to do whatever the hell they want.
Do you have like world events that you've set up that are sort of on a schedule or anything like that?
I wouldn't say on a schedule, but yes, there are certainly I guess checkpoints you could say if you wanted to, you know, certain events that might be triggered by something the players do, or I might just get bored in the middle of one session and go, right, this happens.
So there's a war in my game that's going on in the background, and at some point that war is going to come to this land, you know, and that's not really up to the players. That's just going to affect the players, for example, you know, or the moon could fall or something like that. You know, there are these types of things that could happen in the background that are huge historical events that you could drop in.
It's always nice, I think, to like have the world grow and change outside of the player's control as well, just to make it a bit more like immersive or realistic.
Yeah, Russell, I really like the idea of putting things on timers. So I did that with our Curse of Strahd as well. You know, like they came face to face with him for the first time, had a really kind of intimidating encounter, to which he sort of ended it by saying, "Look, I'll be back in 3 days." And so like suddenly for them, they were just like, come back for what? Like, what is he going to do in 3 days? What's going to happen in 3 days? And then when they got to Vallaki, there was word that there was a festival that was going to be in Vallaki in 3 days as well. And they're like, what are we going to do for 3 days? And what is he going to do at this festival? And it sort of all culminated to this big moment that had been anticipated for weeks and weeks and weeks.
Like in screenwriting terms, it's a time lock.
Yeah.
This pressure is building.
And they wanted to be there for it. Like, I sent them away from Vallaki for sessions and sessions, but they knew, like, okay, it's a long rest, which means there's going to be 2 days, and we got to be back there for at least this thing, let alone almost who cares about the festival because Strahd's coming.
Strahd's going to be there.
Yeah. It was I really like the idea of putting a secondary kind of pressure of time on the players.
It does create a whole new dynamic to the whole thing, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Usually, I try to have like a overarching story. Like, I usually have something mapped out in a sense where, like, okay, if you do this, this is going to be happening, and like, these are the consequences. But I also like to like sort of work with the players quite a bit on their usually when I start, I have a really like long session 0, goes up to like 5-6 hours, but I'm like, let's get it all down. You all know what the world is, and I usually try to understand how the world would interact to the characters and like what they are doing and what they are about. So I usually try to like draw things from their characters and like put in. So the idea with my campaign usually is so the one I'm running right now, it is about morality. Like, what is right for you is right in your mind. Is it right to everyone, sort of deal? So I try to like put questions in front of the players. Like, for example, if there is like a lawful player, I would sort of put something where like someone's being chaotic, but they have to like let that person out. Do they take that choice or not? And I usually like whatever choice they make, I take forward the story with that, in essence, where like, okay, you have taken this choice, now it might come back for you later, and then you can just move on. And I usually have like an open map where like they can choose whatever approach is best. I would have one of my NPCs recommend, okay, this is the trade route I have mapped out for you, so you don't have to get into like the foresty ways and get lost. But like, if whatever way you want to go, you can go there. But I usually also like try to make sure it's like pretty free flowing, in a sense where like they are just interacting with the world, and if they end up like killing the contact person they have, they're gonna have to run away from the world and like try to find other ways to like solve that issue that they came to that place for.
Wow.
And stuff like that. But yeah, because with the whole story being about morality, I also like to sort of keep a counter, in a sense where like, okay, have they been like behaving as like
now recording?
All right. Yeah.
Thanks, Craig.
So I usually try to sort of tally out and say like, okay, this is sort of what they have been doing, and this is what of the stuff that they have ignored, and what's going to be coming after them. So like, by the time they get to the end of whatever the main plot is, they would have experienced enough to get them a different perspective rather than their own perspective, so that they know what each choice could mean, in a sense. And that would sort of build more gravitas to the situation, where like, it is not just about, because for example, I had this sort of small encounter where there's this forest that's been protected, and there's this tribe that is living there, and the tribe doesn't want to leave, and there's like people coming in trying to get the tribe to leave, and the heroes have to decide if they are the person who so they can fight off the people who are trying to send the tribe away, but they're gonna keep coming and attacking them. The tribe would say they don't want to move, they want to stay here because this is our home and we don't want to leave. What does the group do? Do they respect their wish, or like, do they get them to move? If they get them to move, the tribe is safe, but they have beaten the purpose of what they did just before. Or if they respect the tribe,
putting
wouldn't-
putting conflicting motives in front of or conflicting questions in front of your party is always going to, well, not always, it's most of the time it's going to pay off with some really interesting storytelling.
Probably the most interesting thing you can do in D&D, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I think I frustrated.
yeah.
I think I frustrated a lot of my players by having by incorporating a lot of grey areas into
Right.
the first campaign, where it's kind of like, well, we could kill him, but he's not really doing much. We've only heard stories that he's bad, and he's actually kind of nice to us.
I feel like that's one of the best things to do as a DM, though, to just kind of, flip the players' worldviews on their head and see what happens.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah, right. The sort of relative ethics.
Yeah, they give us enough stress as we're doing it. It's only fair that we should be able to dish a little bit out as well.
What do you guys make of alignments and the alignment system generally? I've got a very, very specific opinion about it.
Yeah, I've got a very specific opinion
I
about
love
it.
the alignment system.
Before we go on, Zach, just to check if all of our Inuits are connecting, because mine's not connected.
Yeah, mine's not
since
connected
it's,
anymore, Zach.
I'll yes, just one moment, please, callers.
All of our
let's go.
what's are connected?
All the ennui.
The little
The
recorder
recording
thingy.
software.
Ah, right.
That's why it like
None
blasted
of what we
us.
just did was recorded.
One
Yeah,
moment.
mine's-
We've always got this stream recording to fall back on
Exactly.
if you need the audio anyway.
That's true.
Exactly. So there's I've just in the main Discord chat, I've just put another Ennui client link in there.
Stream's
Got
just
it,
going to
that's
see
it.
it for a bit. Here we go.
It's asked me to attempt reconnection, so I did click that.
Did it work?
Yeah.
That didn't
tried-
work for me,
It's not
Yeah,
working.
but I'm
No,
back
it's
in
not.
now. I'm back in now.
Attempt did not work, and now I've just clicked on your new link and it's working. Thank you. Zach.
Yep. Good.
Okay, I got to
Excellent.
figure out how to get to the link.
It's in the channel.
In Discord, in the text
But
channel.
how do I get to the channel? Because the pictures of the video's full screen.
Click on the general. It's okay, Russell. We got your back.
All right.
Awesome.
All
Cool.
right.
Apologies for the
awesome.
technical difficulties.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry about it.
That's what happens. Cool. All right. Reagan.
It's me now, I
why
think,
don't you? Yeah, go on.
Okay, question. We'll start this with Charlie. Podcasts and streams, they're very much entertainment for your players, but as well as your listeners, right? So, player death. You want your listeners to fall in love with your characters and take them on that journey throughout the homebrew or the campaign that you're playing. How much do you really want your characters, or how much are you willing to let them die?
So that's a really nice question. It's for me, it's a question of like purposeful death or accidental death. I had a character die in one of my seasons, but that was something that me and he had previously discussed as a sort of final way to go. And I think that was obviously more for entertainment of the audience than anything else. Something for his character to have some closure. I think the way I go about usually when I'm DMing, and I've sort of lessened it for the podcast, is I don't really care if your character dies or not. Like usually I have balanced encounters, and I try to do as entertaining as I can do for the players. If they fuck up and they die, then I think that's just part of the game. We roll again, see what else we can get. But yeah, Tom's character, spoilers for Winter, decided that, or was pretty much told that he was going to die through prophecy, and then it was up to him when and how. So
Wow.
That's
That's cool.
amazing.
Wow.
That's really cool. I think Reagan Reagan that touches on a really interesting point, because I mean in a normal sitting around the table D&D game, a player character death, it's not necessarily a huge deal, because it can be.
It can be. Yeah.
But you don't have other people out there who are listening or watching the characters' antics and who might even have a stake in in watching them go. I think it's only fair well, just in my way of thinking, I think it's only fair for characters in a stream or a podcast to have a certain amount of plot armor. Not to be totally invulnerable, but I think a certain amount is fair. You know, if a beloved character dies due to some poor rolls, I would seriously consider saying, just stopping the recording, going, right, guys, what do we want to do here?
You fudge the roll.
I have a really interesting story about this exact thing. If you don't mind me interrupting you,
Go on.
because something really interesting happened to our game the other day. We were streaming live, and the main character, a character called Milford Brixton, who's pretty much the most beloved character in the story, failed 3 death checks, 3 death saving throws. Right.
Oh.
Now, in Twitch, you have a what they call stream currency or channel currency.
Oh, right.
And I allowed the audience to purchase him another death saving throw with the channel currency. And so he got another saving throw, and he survived because of that one thing. And I thought that was a really cool way of interacting with the audience and having that audience participation. And this is one of the differences, I guess, between streaming live and doing a podcast. Is you're not going to have that audience participation, but you have the opportunity to be much more refined in terms of how you come across. Whereas when I fuck up, and everybody's
Russell, do you release your sessions in podcast format at all, or do you leave it just for Twitch?
I stream on Twitch, and then I export them to YouTube. So they're all on my YouTube channel as an archive, essentially. And I don't really edit them for that. Occasionally, I will make clips out of different scenes and what have you, and that sort of thing. And if I'm really keen, I've done a couple of games where I've recorded them, and at least one game which Zach was in, where we were trying to stream, but we couldn't get an out signal on the internet, so we ended up
Oh no.
and then I cut that one down from like an hour and a half to 30 minutes. And so
That's a good point. How do you deal with New Zealand internet when you're streaming?
This is why like Zencast and things are useful, because it's just bad otherwise. Oh, with streaming, it's even worse. Eh?
Man, I'm lucky. I've got really good internet. I'm the one that sort of puts it all together and throws it out onto the web. So I'm really lucky that all of my players have a decent enough connection to make sure their video and audio is okay. And then everything else is just on my side. Someone's saying, when we stream, do we all get together in one room and play, or do you just play online? So that's probably a good question for the people who do the just podcasts. I know, obviously, with the streaming, which me and Russell, I assume you guys all do it from your own homes, or
I do it both ways. Actually, I've done it both ways for streaming.
Nice.
And with mixed results.
Right. Because we're all at our own homes. When we do ours. But how about the podcasters?
For Season Quest,
This
is the Season Quest mic. We all huddle around it, and
one mic.
Play. One mic.
One
Yep.
mic. Oh my gosh, guys.
Damn. Okay.
How? Wow.
Yeah, it's not ideal, but I guess
like huddling around the campfire, though, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It's very
intimate.
personal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it.
That's intimate.
Azul?
Yeah, for Don't Forget Your Towel, we're a bit all over the place because our player base is quite fluctuate. Like, it fluctuates quite a bit. We don't have a stable player base. So we have people all over the world joining in. So sometimes we have all Kiwis just huddled around a table, or sometimes we just have to, record using Discord or something like that. Obviously, we use something like Zencaster, but it's a bit of both, I think. Yeah.
I did a game the other day on Into the Darkness, which is a Call of Cthulhu game.
Nice.
From America. They've got like 3,000 something subscribers on YouTube or something. They're a podcast. They record. So obviously that was people from all around, mostly America actually. But a couple of Kiwis do it. Weirdly enough, send them an email.
There are a surprising number of Kiwis like living in other countries who are doing like podcastings and things. Like it's surprising.
Yeah. Now we record Dungeons and Dipshits all around the same table. All my players very kindly, very graciously make the trek up to my place in Whangaparoa, and we cheat a little bit. We'll record 2 or 3 weeks of content in a day.
Nice.
I would love, I would love nothing more than to be able to do it week on week. But the editing and post production time is just it's too long. It's just not doable. So we make it sound like we get together each week, but it's lies. It's all lies.
Lies.
That's what being a DM is, lying all the time.
Lying
much
with
lies.
style.
Style.
Like I always wonder what my listeners, my audience would be like, say if they saw like the initial product and the final product next to each other.
Right.
Yeah.
How far have your products come? Is a question I'd like to ask, because I know that mine have come a long
Oh
way
yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
boy.
and have a long way to go.
Yeah,
Mm.
it's a continuous process of learning and just adapting, and oh man, I don't think I'll ever finish learning. To be
Yeah.
honest.
No, you don't. No, you absolutely do not.
Yeah.
I just recently went back and remastered. I say remastered, re-edited episodes 1 and 2. Just because going back, it sounded like they came from the bottom of a well. It was just appalling. There was this terrible, there was this terrible background hiss, and now that I've had a few months of audio editing experience, I was able to go back and make it sound less garbage.
One of my first streams was in a garage, and next door to the garage, this guy pulled out a chainsaw.
What?
It's like, oh my god!
That's
Make it
pretty
part of the podcast. Make it part of the stream. Oh, that's just
Yeah.
old man Bob with his
Chainsaw
chainsaw.
Larry.
easy to do that. Awesome. Cool. All right. Any final thoughts on Reagan's really good question?
Player deaths as part of the
player
entertainment
deaths.
side of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We get at that. That's what we were talking about.
Yeah. A bit of a tangent there.
Sidetracked.
A tangent involved in D&D? Never.
No.
Never happened
Never had
before.
it.
Going away from plan? Huh?
You're railroading us, Zach. I don't have enough agency.
Where's the NPC motivation, Zach?
Yeah.
To answer Reagan's question from, I guess, Don't Forget Your Towel's perspective, I guess, it's a bit different for us because we don't have a campaign. So Play It is pretty flexible. Every set, like, obviously you don't want the players to die in like the first 10 minutes or something, but we've had quite a few episodes where the players die like 3/4 of the way through, and we just kind of have to deal with that.
That's cool.
It's not as maybe serious as you guys, because you guys have a campaign, so if somebody dies, then it's like, oh my gosh. But we try to kind of, that's what, like, it's hard because you need to make the audience fall in love with the character, and then they die, and you need to make it sad as well.
Yeah.
I honestly find like, one of the things with a campaign that you can do that you probably can't do as easily with a one shot is you can kill off NPCs, and the players and the viewers will care if you kill NPCs. Like I had an NPC I killed, and one of my players, it was not for a podcast though, but one of my players didn't speak to me for 2 weeks because I killed their favorite NPC died. You know.
Yeah.
So you can use that as part of your stakes.
Yeah, there's a lot in campaigns that I wish I could get into one shots, but not so much.
Oh, neat.
Yeah. Do you have any recurring NPCs in your one shots when you switch games?
We've definitely considered doing that, and I think we recently, like, bit of a shameless plug here. We recently launched a Patreon where one of the tiers is basically anyone who's listening can create their own NPC, and we just jot them into like a lot of our plays. But we haven't done it yet, so we'll see how it goes.
Cool. That's really cool. Awesome.
And like with regards to like death, player death, I also like bouncing off of, I can't remember who said we sort of had a gap. But usually I sort of feel that the players are also audience in a sense, where like you know, if there is one player and they are doing certain things, the other players are audience to that player's character story, and so am I. So I try to lean towards like giving them a bit of plot armor in a sense, where like if there is a situation where it is they are getting close to death, but it is not the death that the character deserves, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna give it as much chance and warning and buffers as I can. But like I've had situations where it has been like I specifically say, okay, this is gonna be dangerous, and like I give out warnings, and not in exact words, but like sort of drop hints here and there, being like,
Are you sure?
you shouldn't be
Are you
doing
sure
this.
you want to do that?
You
When
wanna
your
do
DM
this.
asks that.
And if they end up doing, I'm like, sure, if that is the way you want your character to go out, opening a chest and blasting yourself, that's totally fine. But in all seriousness, I also feel like players in a long running campaign put a lot of like I would say their essence and their ideas and everything into their characters, and they are investing quite a bit in it. So I usually feel a bit guilty if I'm killing off for something like pretty trivial. So I try to be like, even if it is trivial, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna give it some gravitas where like this is gonna drive the story forward. And one way I do that is I like to add a lot of characters to like the smaller villains they fight. For example, like if they're fighting like a group of bandits, and I usually have like the bandits being related in some ways, where like it's like a tribe. And like so in one of the recent sessions, there was this one guy, two bandits were fighting one person, one of the players, and the player sort of like critted heavily on like 2 attacks against the. It was the first time the player is hitting the characters. There were 2 of them, and the player was hitting one of them, and took it down pretty quickly in like the same turn. And I was like, how do I make this more fun and like more like investing? All right, let it not just be like hack and slash. And I was like, when the turn came for the other NPC, I was like, you shouldn't have killed my lover. And like it just made things worse. Where like now they were like, oh, we just like took someone away, and like the other NPC got away, but like now they know like this could be something that comes back. And like, you know, I like to like, if there is a situation where the other character could take them off, I would sort of look, would they do that now? Or like, is there a reason why they could let them go for a while and then come back? If there is, and if I feel like the player is not strong enough to take on them, I would probably lean towards that reason and take that exit and like let the player have one more chance. But like if it is like something that happens again and again, I'm like, okay, you're going after the same person who's clearly like beaten you pretty close to death again. You got it. You wanted death, you face it, and like, you know, you get it.
A great way to make your players feel bad about just stomping over guards or bandits or something like that is to give them little mementos or something on their person. So when inevitably the rogue or the bard says, I loot the bodies, it's like, great. You go through the upper pocket in their shirt and they have a folded up picture of their sweetheart and a letter saying, oh, I can't wait till you're done with guard duty so I can see you again, and our 16 children are looking forward
one
to
more day till retirement.
Have you ever made have you ever had your players cry? Like, for
Not
example,
yet.
I ran a game. It was a masquerade game, to be fair. It wasn't Dungeons and Dragons, but regularly our players cried because it's a very emotional game. But they killed the big bad evil guy, which was actually a woman called Helene. Helen of Troy was her original character.
Oh, right.
And they finally tracked her down, and this huge 12-year-long campaign. That's how long the game took in real life. And they finally killed Helene, and they dug down into where her crypt was, and they find these 3 little figurines of her husband and her children and her child and herself. And they were from like 4,000 years before, and that's all that remained of her life. And they destroyed this creature that was this old, that had this emotional attachment to these simple figurines, and we just wept. That was quite powerful.
I had one player tear up, and I thought I felt really bad at the time because his character. I'll try and summarize this quickly. His character's backstory was that he was part of a really poor family that was sold as a slave to royalty. He eventually stole like the name of one of the royalty and escaped, basically pretending to be one of the princes, basically this noble bard. And he stole the guy's name, and we went through the Lost Mine of Phandelver to the point where he got rid of the red brands from the main village of Phandalin before getting onto the story. And there's a big festival in the player's honor, and I had the prince show up, and be like, thank you for basically doing this and making me a hero. Not only did I take all of your youth, but I'm taking this honor as well. And he did this in front of all of the other characters who didn't know that this player had false identity. So basically just pulled the rug out from underneath him. He had to own up to who he was in front of all of his crew, but also not have the guy was going to leave and basically talk about how his name is the one that's going to be touted as the hero of Phandalin. So
Wow.
that was an awesome moment.
Very cool.
Awesome.
In a personal campaign I was running with some of the same Season Quest people, I had the NPC that they all fell in love with, the town guard who's just trying to save up to get some medicine for his sick mother. They found a deck of many things. He pulled a card.
No.
It was the one where his soul gets trapped, and the only way he can get out is with a wish spell or something like that.
Jeez.
Lucy, who I think I've made cry multiple times in the podcast, was pretty upset at me.
No.
Incredible.
Yeah, I think there's a couple episodes in Winter where I either scare the shit out of her or just have a character die unexpectedly, and I feel bad about it sometimes, but it's also just like,
it's hard not to feel bad sometimes, but it's for the story. I've felt bad numerous times, to be honest.
GM goals to make your players cry.
Awesome.
Editor
Cool.
Bunny says, "No, don't guilt trip the players and make them feel like monsters."
Yeah.
Some
saw
players
that.
are into it.
Conversation, we are getting to be the monsters.
Yeah, I love Zach's response to that. They deserve it! Exclamation mark.
They do.
The entire premise of the game Vampire the Masquerade is you are playing monsters. That's the point of it.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it's relevant, and some players are into that. They're interested in that analysis. They want
They are.
they want to confront the human condition, and that's sort of learning about yourself. Know thyself. Role playing is a tool that you can use to learn to know yourself, and we tend to treat it as a escapist activity that was just fun and games for us in our modern society, but it's a storytelling tool. It's very, very powerful.
She follows up just saying, let's just make sure it's covered in session 0. So Energized Bunny plays Merkin and Getting Dicey. And we made it very, very clear from episode 0. It's like they're all playing the good guys. So it's not about if they kill someone, I'd be a dick if they were just like, you just killed a hero. What are you doing? I'd be, to reveal that afterwards would be just a real dick move.
That's very true.
I think it has been said many a time before that D&D is just a bunch of people coming together and giving each other therapy.
Right.
And like session 0 is pretty crucial to any game, like regardless of the medium. If it's like something over a table talk with your friends, you never know what could trigger something else. You better do like a solid session 0.
Azul, how do you deal with session 0 if you're doing one shots?
We have to have a session 0 for every single one.
Usually you can sort of have like a half an hour. When I do a one shot, I usually have like a half an hour conversation where I'm sort of being like, okay, this is the premise. I won't be delving too much into what you would be doing, but I would sort of let you know these are the side of topics you would be encountering. Are you comfortable with it? If they say no, I would rewrite something else and present it. It's probably better to have them know what sort of topics they would be encountering rather than throwing them into the deep end if it is a one shot. If it is a campaign, I've actually found this like really cool checklist, RPG etiquette checklist. I think it's
nice.
on the groups. If you go to any of the D&D groups, and so that basically lists all like sort of like topics like sexual content, relationships between characters and NPCs, and like it also talks about like gore and sort of basic topics that might be might spark something off or like might affect the players in any way. And in a sense, D&D is people coming into this new space to be comfortable and explore something different. They're not here to live through like other trauma or like real life circumstances.
You
So
don't
it's
need to be
always better to have that
re-traumatizing people.
really good conversation, because in like usually I'm playing with strangers. I usually make a group art in Facebook, and that's usually how you can do in Wellington. But once you have a group, you never know what sort of person each of them are. So it's probably better to have like a really good session zero where you are like, okay, these are the things I want to. Tell me the things that you don't want me to do. We can get to a balance, and the list basically says to like hand it out as a form and then get it filled, and you can go over it later. What I usually do is I read out the form, and each topic I'm having a discussion. That's why I have like a 6-hour session zero. But like I'm like when they're coming to it, I'm like prepare yourself for like 6 hours of grueling questions, because I'm gonna ask everything that I can, and like making sure you're comfortable with me in the table rather than me finding it out later in the session and sort of having to break a character in the middle just because I didn't know something that would be hurting you in any way.
It's important to have consistent explanations and consistent ideas of exactly what's going to happen when you're playing, and making sure that everyone is on the same page. That's critical.
Cool. And I sort of put a thumb rule where I'm like, okay, unless you mention you're hitting non-lethally, I'm counting every hit as lethal, and you're going to the kill. So that like if you end up killing, you're not gonna be like, oh, I didn't mean to kill him. No, I've specifically said I set out the rules. You unless you specify that you're not killing them with your last blow.
I quite like that.
I'm
Instead of relying on them to say this shot is non-lethal. Like I quite like that as a rule.
I think that's
Plus it sort of makes it like it gives more characters. So like if someone says they're a pacifist, I'm gonna assume that every time they're hitting non-lethally unless they specifically say,
good way to go about
okay,
it.
this
really
character
like
has
that.
done far enough. It's time to go lethal, and that also brings in a bit more character development in a sense.
Because the amount of times that like you might have designed a character to like cave under pressure, and they just go straight into like attacking them. If you just attack them with the intent to kill, they're gone. There's no way out of that.
Exactly.
But if you think of it as like every attack being non-lethal, then you take them down, and then you can do whatever you want with them afterwards. You can maybe extract some information, wake them back up.
Yeah.
That also makes a little bit more.
I really like that.
That also makes a little bit more sense of the whole hit point system in some ways too.
Yeah. Because you as a player, you're not going to know if it's the last attack or not. You're just probably attacking. I think I might even steal that. Thank you so much for that, Aki.
It's a good one.
Bouncing off that hit points thing, how do you guys sort of relay information about how the enemy is looking? Do you guys actually tell how many hit points, or do you just describe?
Because I fudge it way too often.
Can I tell you a secret? I don't make them up. I don't even. Not all the time, but some of the time, the hit points don't exist on the character. They don't actually have. They just die when I want them to die after the players have had enough of them. Like at the point where the drama has been sucked out, where it's been milked to the point where it can't go any further, and the players are going to get killed. That's when you let them die.
That's especially more useful for streaming and podcasting, where it's like there has to be a narrative point where you sort of shut it down, because otherwise it's boring.
There's nothing worse than a player talking about this, like triggering some big epic ability and pulling out this thing and magical weapon, and they deal this big crazy blow that they detail beautifully, and you're like, cool, it's got 1 HP left, let's move to the next player. Like I hate that. I hate that so much. Just give them that moment.
Because it works both ways, doesn't it? You can also you can drag the fight out, or you can finish the fight.
Way.
I think it's quite important to give players like that moment. Like completely agreeing with you, Reagan, with regards to that, because it's even for like podcasts or even outside of podcasts. Honestly, it is important to, as a GM, to kind of balance that idea of like all the rules and then kind of bend it when needed for your players as well as for your audience. To be honest,
Rule of cool.
Yes,
exactly.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's where it comes into play the most, I feel, too.
And also, I mean, speaking to that point, if there's a fight and it's been going on for a while, and it is one of those things where it's, the players are going to win, and it's just a matter of time. It also makes sense for people to retreat, for that sort of thing, for them to cut and run, to rout. And you can even turn that into a skill challenge or something if they want to follow them through the city streets or the forest or whatever your combat arena happens to be. You can just add that on to the end of combat, which I think work really well.
You basically moderate your story pace and flow, and if you're using things like milestones as well, you're not so much XP dependent.
Love milestone.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And like bouncing off that, I've sort of like been working with this sort of like homebrew mechanic where I have like basically stats for cards that people are on. So like you could have like a card fight where like you could shoot arrows and like try to get away, and there is like one person who's a driver and they can't do anything in their turn other than just driving the horse, and depending on their animal handling rolls, the horse goes faster or slower. Or like if they're proficient with the land vehicles, they can make it go faster. And like it sort of gives a nice cinematic view, like if you imagine it, where it's like you have this cart and there's like 3 more carts chasing off. You could ram your cart against it, and I have like a damage die that you can roll if you're rolling like ramming it into things. And like it sort of brings in a nice play where like you could escape by like boosting the horse and like trying to like track the other horses away, because the other cards have horses, and you could target the horses and just make them stop rather than taking off every person in the cards. Rather, like instead of like going for the kill, it's more so trying to get away from the situation. So it's really interesting with like D&D, because you could throw in like numerous situations if you are like creative about it, where like okay, fighting your way out and like / hacking through every person is not the best way out. You could sort of have like this diplomatic situation where you're like trying to like become impersonate this like prison warden, and like you're taking these prisoners who happen to be the rest of your party, and like you can get away with it pretty easily. And like I usually try to reward people, like all my players, to like for decisions like that, where like, okay, that's a really creative way to like get out of situations, and
sometimes
make it much easier.
Sometimes the most tense moment can be like a handshake in some diplomatic situation. Where alliances and factions are going to change, and it could change the whole landscape of the city or of the empire. Might just transformed by how someone makes a social skill check. That can be really exciting. That can be way more exciting than a big boss fight sometimes.
Yeah, totally. Like balancing all different factions and groups and alliances. Oh,
yeah. We should keep moving with
Yeah, absolutely. I was just gonna bring that. Russell, what's your question for Reagan there?
Oh, my question for Reagan. Hang on, let me check. Do you, Reagan? Because you don't stream live, do you?
No, we do. We do live streaming.
So you are live streaming. That's right. You do. So when you're streaming, do you censor your game in any way? Like, do your players know not to say certain things? Do you avoid certain topics? Is there any kind of censorship that you put into place as you're playing, before you're playing, or after you've played?
That's really interesting, because I could understand some people needing to do that. I totally get that. I play, like, my crew is amazing. They're all very much on the same level. They're all incredibly respectful and nice, loving folk that want nothing but diversity and friendship and happiness and all this kind of stuff. They're very, very nice players.
Progressive kind of ideas.
Very, very progressive. And none of them want to just go in and, I don't know, like be... they want to be the heroes. And I think that's because they're very, very nice people. I've never had to say, we can't go down this road, or we can't talk about this and we can't talk about that. I think the one time we had any moment that kind of veered towards evil characters, it got shut down really quickly. because we had all agreed at session 0 we're not going to do it.
So who did the shutting down?
It was a joint thing where a player's character was just like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And then one of the then I, as the DM, just got an NPC in on that person's side as well, kind of like, "You can't. What are you doing? You can't do this." And like, almost not shaming the player, but trying to get the character to own up and trying to understand why it was such a fucked up thing to do.
Yeah.
And it would have been a nuance for the character. It would have made the character more interesting, ultimately.
Yeah.
But the fact that you were able to steer it out of there in character in the game is pretty cool.
Yeah, one of the things that one of my players sort of introduced me to was like a I don't even know what the official term for it, but it's like a hero system. If your characters do something really heroic, they get a point. And if you do something villainous, you lose a point. If you lose 3 points, your character becomes an NPC. I remove the character from you. They become a villainous NPC, is gone. And you're probably going to get kicked out of the game as well.
So
but
kind of like humanity points.
Yeah. And that was enough. Most people just want to do good. One of my players is saying they don't remember what moment I'm referencing. I'm referencing the moment where they realized that these pies that were made in this windmill were made out of children. And one of the characters was like, "I'm going to take some of these pies. I'm going to take this." And it was already known that the NPC that they were with knew some of the kids that they saved, and therefore knew probably a lot of the children that were in the pies. So he did this really disrespectful thing of taking these pies for personal gain later on. And, you know, he even specified, I'm going to keep this a secret from the players. Like, he knew it was bad. He knew it was fucked up, but he did it. And then I was like, okay, in my head, I'm like, this isn't good. So they all get into the carriage to carry on their way. And I'm like, Bill, which is another character, you get into the carriage and you just smell like freshly baked pies in this carriage, and there shouldn't be any here. And that was enough. That was enough to reveal the secret,
Was this in your Curse of Strahd campaign? Or
yeah, this is in the Curse of Strahd campaign.
Gotcha.
One of my viewers said most intense moment between characters ever, and it was because when the NPC was straight up yelling at the character,
Right.
but it wasn't me yelling; it was very much the NPC. It was great. Yeah.
Well, that's some of the best drama is when you're actually yelling at each other like that, and the players is a sort of intensity between the characters and the NPCs like that, and it's a sort of a social drama. Sometimes that's way more interesting than I roll a 20 and I hit and how much damage I do.
Interesting, 100%. But it was one of many little conflicts that we had with that player, who wasn't as bound to that mantra of being a hero as the others.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, player or character, Reagan?
Player, I think, wanted a bit more of the villainous or chaotic side of things.
No, I mean, I guess in Dungeons and Dipshits, I mean, we're primarily a comedy podcast. So, we're not afraid to sort of push the boundaries if within reason. I think I'm not a comedian. None of the cast are comedians, but I think it behooves people who create in that sort of comedic space to sometimes push back just a little against the prevailing wisdom or way of thinking. I'm not saying go out and spout racism and hate speech and all that sort of stuff. And anything like that would get shut down immediately.
Right.
But for example, in one of the player character intros that we ran before starting the podcast proper, I think there was a fella on Twitter who said it involved some ethnic cleansing level racism, and that's not stuff, and that was put in there deliberately. And it was an NPC faction, and it's going to be explored later on in the podcast. But it wasn't put in there to be gratuitous or to be offensive. It was put in there to
provoke, maybe
to provoke a way of to provoke, I guess, getting people to look at it and think and go, okay, this is in a fun podcast. What is there that's actually happening out in the world? Because this does happen out in the world. And so putting an extreme example like that in there, I think isn't a way of getting people to maybe register what's happening out and about in the world.
To me, that's a really, really dangerous thing, I think.
Oh yeah.
In regards to podcast or streaming, is maybe trying to satirize something, if that's what you're trying to do, but doing it well, because there's such at the current climate, there's a really fine line between satirization and realization at this moment, and you could throw out
very
something
hard to balance it.
that you could be thinking up here. Here's some great satire, but I'm going to edit it in a way where it's some kind of big cliffhanger, and then next week we'll wrap it up, and everyone will see why it's a satire, and maybe you don't hit the mark. And there's so much already in D&D in regards to the conflicts and stories that tell that me personally, I'm just like, I'm not going to throw in anything edgy, because like we're predominantly comedy as well. You listen to Getting Dicey, we're laughing almost 100% of the time. But and this might go back to the fact that I said our team is really progressive and they're really nice folk. Mostly, I mean, we still laugh at like very childish things sometimes, but it's never at the expense of a real life like negative thing happening in the world, unless it's punching up, of course, obviously.
I think I kind of agree with you, Reagan, like especially for podcasts, because like I think for streaming you can kind of give a bit more of a leeway, but for podcasts, because you do a huge post-processing, like there's a whole huge process of post. Every single moment you keep on the podcast is kind of a conscious decision to keep
There's no excuses.
It's a message.
With Don't Forget Your Towel, we do end up, I wouldn't say censoring, but cutting out things that even if a player says something that we know they didn't mean it in a certain way, we kind of have to like take a step back and think, okay, if I was a listener looking at this and didn't know the context or the face or the the gestures that they're making, would they take it in a bad way as well? So we do have like a two-step process with that. We try to, because we're predominant comedy as well, if it matters. We do try to keep it PG-13 in terms of not even swearing.
We go all on with swearing. We don't care. I've dropped the C-bomb a few times.
I figured as much as well. But that's more because Apple has things about swearing, and so we try to keep it within those terms. But I do agree with like keeping it. It is a balance. It's a very precarious balance, especially in the 21st century.
For Season Quest, I would be hesitant to say that we're a comedy podcast if we were funnier. But I think beforehand, I remember us all sort of getting together and having this conversation. Like, look, these are the things we're going to leave out completely, like racism, sexism, that sort of stuff. Anything that's, like if you're going into politics someday, do you want this podcast behind you?
Right.
And that's the thing, right? You might think you've just got this brilliant satirization of racism and it's just going to be amazing. You've thought about it, you've planned it, the NPC's going to do this, they're this kind of race, they're this class, it'll line up perfectly. But you've been thinking about it so long, and have you run it past anybody? Have you run it past your players? And you drop it and it just sinks. It's out there now.
Yeah, it's super stressful as well. I think we had an episode where I was playing an English noble from the 1700s, and he hated the French, and he was he thought the French were cowards and that sort of thing. The usual Rose War, kind of 100 Years War kind of thing. But even then, we were very worried about releasing it because that's still kind of borderline, basically racist. And so we had to have a disclaimer at the beginning as well and say this was meant in farce and all that sort of thing. It was a bit easier in that context because the whole episode, that particular episode, was just a very jokey kind of aesthetic. So it's very hard to take it in the wrong way, but we still thought just in case.
You can totally have a racist character, but just tone it back for it. Show how hateful he is towards them. Show the history of why he's like that, but you don't have to have him throwing out slurs every time he speaks.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. it is also quite a bit leaning towards the player's ability to bring in more development to the character in general. Like for example, I play in this as a player. I play in a campaign where I'm a half elf who's sort of like abandoned, and she lived in a forest, and she lived in a oak next to an oak tribe, and she always got bullied by the people in the oak tribe. So she has this like innate hatred towards oaks, and one of the party member is a full blown oak. And like so, but she sort of has this arc where she's like, she won't let people kill this oak, but she won't also kill this oak, and like she likes this person, and like she sort of like plays along, and
So
it's gotten to a point where like,
can say like, I'm not racist. My best friend's an orc.
yeah,
so
and like
bad.
but like even then I know like there is a line I need to draw where like, okay, is this character being a lunatic and gonna go on a hunting spree and kill every oak that it can find, or is it gonna be like, okay, I don't like them, I'm gonna be respectful of myself and like not just abuse any oak I'm gonna find. And that is also something the player has to bring in,
Yeah.
because in a sense, like when I try to do my sessions, or like when I try to plan out a campaign, I usually sort of let them know that, okay, there is going to be some like harder topics and harder pills to swallow, but I'm going to be having that conversation before I start, where I'm like, okay, here are the things, and I'm going to be giving reasons for why you need to take care of them or not. And I don't do that at the starting of my campaign. I want to like test out my players and see like, okay, what are their sensibilities, what sort of reactions I get from them on situations like these, so that I know, okay, this is the threshold, this is the limit to which I know that the players would be respectful. And after that, it's gonna be my mistake and their mistake for me to putting them in a certain situation where they have to behave, how would I say it, like in a very like aggressive way, or like something that is not suitable. And that is on me and that is on them as well, because that would make everyone like else in the table uncomfortable. So
Yeah.
it does come down to like somewhere where we are sort of balancing out, being like, okay, there is the player who makes decisions and there's the character who makes decisions. We have to know what sort of decisions the character makes. Like I like to play with a lot of negative characters. Even if the players are negative, I'm totally fine. It is, I just need to know why they're doing certain things.
Right.
There
I think
should be a
it's
solid
pretty
reason.
brave.
Like a negative attitude?
Yeah,
Or
like if they are like this hunter or like a bounty hunter who's just joining along with the party, who's just to find this person, and then they could be dick to everyone they see, and
Sounds like
I'm totally
bad
fine with it,
people.
while you're being respectful of each other's like boundaries. Like usually if there's like a player to player conflict where like there's sort of like abuses or like slurs going to each other, I'm sort of like have this conversation before we come into the session, know what you're going to be saying, and like know that the other person is okay with it. If not, then you're not doing it, then you're finding some other way to trigger this person as a character.
I
yeah, like
personally,
someone in chat said, that's ultimately all about consent
yeah.
between
Yeah, it
the
is.
DM and the players.
And I also feel like it is, so I actually found this like, I can't remember who said it, but someone, oh, it's John Berryman. I might be pronouncing his name wrong, but he said he plays the villain in the show called Arrow, if anyone has seen it.
Yeah.
And his basic concept was, in his story he is a hero while being the villain. So I resonate with that a lot. And I am like, okay, if they are doing bad things, I need to know why they're doing bad and why they would think themselves as doing the right thing. And it is essential to convince people of that, whoever is like seeing it. Like when I'm thinking of like, okay, I want to start a podcast, and I want to like set this campaign for people to watch and like people to criticize. I should be open to criticism, where like I have an episode where like there's this evil character who does this horrendous thing. I need to justify it somewhere down the line.
Right.
And if the horrendous thing is not so bad in retrospect, then the character has like a arc where they can redeem themselves, or like or if it is something that is not redeemable, and they have this more like a downfall arc, which would be more fun to explore as we progress along. And it is how we set the tone as a campaign in general, like as we go along. Because I tend to be like more serious driven campaigns. I'm not. I like to leave space for comedy as it happens naturally, but I know like I'm leaning more towards drama. So that's totally fine. Then like
out of the characters and the situation, you don't want to have like banana skins and
Casual banana skin road.
As we're talking about this, I knew Shannon, who plays the wizard in our campaign, would be piping up because he's watching. He said some internal party conflict can be interesting, but if it becomes the focus of a game, it's annoying to him. There's a campaign to get on with, and if one player wants to sidetrack and make it all about that character, it's kind of annoying. So there was like a sort of a question that we sort of brought up a couple of years ago with Getting Dicey is, well, why would your characters still hang out with this guy? It's clearly not a good fit for you. He keeps bringing drama. Why are your characters there? And I think the answer was, well, because it's a game. And it's like, well, no, but that's like, just tell him to go away. So you're talking about having a full orc character, which, man, my crew have big thoughts about playable orc characters as well. Because as soon as you humanize one, you humanize all of them.
Everything.
So then it's like, well, you're bringing in, as a DM, you've said yes to someone playing a full orc character, but you've also said yes to a player who hates orcs, and then you've got this campaign and story.
That's the campaign I play. So I play the character who hates orc. And my DM, there's another person who plays the full orc.
Right. So from a DM's point of view, it
is sort of like a evil campaign in a sense where like I'm a bounty hunter and he's sort of this cunning bard who's like trying to break through the high society. So it is sort of like a morality is written.
Okay,
that makes more sense. That makes more sense.
Excellent. No, that's marvelous. Any final thoughts on Russell's question about sort of self-censoring, or should we go to the final question of the evening, because this question and answer session that I thought would take about an hour is nearly 2 hours. So
these things
at any moment I have to switch batteries again.
See, brilliant. Well, I guess the final question is my question to Russell. Russell, like me, you play a homebrewed campaign within the 5th edition D&D rules. What are your thoughts on additional homebrewed mechanics? Mechanics specifically, not so much items and that sort of thing. What are your thoughts on additional homebrewed mechanics within that same framework?
What are my thoughts on mechanics, homebrew mechanics? Well, the thing is, I hate mechanics to begin with. So I'm the kind of DM that's gonna basically my whole approach to role playing is you don't use mechanics unless you have to. If you don't have a reason to use mechanics, why would you use them? They just slow the story down. What's the point in them unless they're actually doing something useful? So the only time a mechanic is useful is when the players need it. Basically, in my opinion, if the players require you to have a mechanic because either they're brainwashed to think that they have to have mechanics, or because they make it feel like it's fair, there's some situation that will come across as more fair to them because there's a mechanic to resolve a situation, like a skill check or a fight or whatever, then you bring in mechanics. But adding mechanics, generally, I am not interested in personally doing that. I'm more likely to strip mechanics out than to add mechanics. I would rather make a call on something. I would rather roll a random dice or pluck a hair out of my ass and see what color it was and say, this is what happens. Because to me, mechanics slow the game down, and I'm used to playing relatively light, mechanic-light games. Like I keep talking about Vampire the Masquerade because I played that for a very long time. But it's very simple and very straightforward, and it's very easy to play, and the mechanics are designed to not get in the way. The thing for me is D&D comes from a wargaming background, and I think 5th edition carries a lot of baggage that's part of the brand Dungeons and Dragons, which makes it a recognizable game that you can sell. Of the Coast require a certain number of these mechanics to sell the game onwards to their players and to their player base who expect them. It's a genre expectation. So for Dungeons and Dragons, you have to have these mechanics. Otherwise, it's no longer D&D, and you can't sell D&D if it doesn't look like D&D. You know, if you want to sell a chicken, it's got to taste like chicken. So that's kind of how I feel about mechanics. I think that there are better games that are not designed that are designed for role playing from the ground up. That most of them came out in the 90s, honestly.
I'm dying to ask you a follow-up question then, Russell, which is, what is your go-to mechanic that you strip away? Every campaign, you just go, don't need it.
Alignment.
Yes, thank you.
Alignment.
Agreed.
It's the biggest, most nonsensical mechanic in the game. I mean, it just makes characters into two-dimensional stereotypes.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, to be fair, my players do have alignments if they want to have alignments. I don't tell them they can't use them, but they don't really affect the game. My NPCs, if I'm looking at a module and there's an alignment there, I can go, oh, okay, I know how to play that character. They're going to be in the game for 10 seconds, so it doesn't really matter. All I need to know is their general attitude to the world, and it's based on the consensus reality of our current zeitgeist culture, you know. So okay, fine, I know what that means. I know what a chaotic evil character is supposed to be according to pop culture, so I can kind of play that stereotype. But then I'm always going to be digging further into it to say, well, why are they like this? What trauma has affected them? What are the reasons that this person's like this? Why are they so flawed? You know, so that's the mechanic that I would strip away.
I have occasionally used alignment as a way of just double checking if a player is making an action because they're just irritated by an NPC, or if their character is irritated by an NPC. Because sometimes when role playing gets quite serious, your player could kind of the line between a player and character could kind of get molded a bit, and then you kind of have to wonder, okay, why do you want to kill this character when you're a lawful good, like quote unquote lawful good?
Right.
In that context, I've used it as, hey, take a step back. Is this really what your character wants to do? Consider your alignment. But otherwise, I completely agree with you.
What I replace alignment with is cultural expectations and cultural conventions. Like you were talking about orcs before, and in my game, elves hate orcs. They will kill orcs on sight. They will kill baby orcs on sight. Even if they're lawful good paladin elves, they will still kill baby orcs on sight because they're vermin. That's a cultural expectation. These are cultural stereotypes and cultural programming that we're talking about, like social accretions that have come to these characters and they've learned these things and it's become part of their programming. So when I'm role playing in Masquerade or in D&D, I will spend time talking to the player before in session 0. What are your cultural expectations? What does you're playing a Minotaur? Okay, well, first of all, I hardly ever let people play Minotaurs, but there are exceptions. But if you are, what do Minotaurs think about dwarves? What do they think about elves? What do they think about humans? And why? And how do you react to those things? And if you meet one, and so this gives you so for me, like I've got a lot of elven characters. It's a very elf-centric world that I created, which may or may not be a good thing. I don't know. Point being that the elves have a story arc. They have a character arc to make. That is, they have to realize that orcs, despite the fact they hate them and they've been programmed to hate them, they're not all evil, even though that might be what they think. They're going to meet orcs that aren't evil, and they're going to be confronted by that, and they're going to have to learn and grow. And now we have an inbuilt story arc where characters are going to change. That's called character development, you know, and that's a thing.
Love it.
I kind of removed.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, I removed a little bit of that cultural sort of aspect out of Curse of Strahd, because Curse of Strahd is all based in a world of just humans. Like, and I was just like, well, you're gonna have like an Eladrin Elf, I think that's how you pronounce it. Eladrin Elf, half elves, a Goliath, stuff like this. I didn't want every conversation to be like, whoa, who are these? What? I just was like, I can't have that. So yeah, they look weird, but doesn't matter.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Didn't want it to be a focus.
I mean, Strahd, Barovia is a little demiplane already. They've sort of experienced a lot of weird shit, haven't they?
Yeah.
It's a little bit. It's the Shadowfell. That you're kind of used to that stuff happening.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Like I might have an unpopular opinion, but I found like alignment really helpful in a way. I think of it like it is a good mechanic to have in a sense where it is a good starting point. I feel like in a longer campaign, I would sort of think of the alignment as like two sliders that you have control of, where you sort of like, okay, this character is starting chaotic neutral. They're sort of slowly, gradually moving their chaosness to lawfulness, and like you sort of know how they're progressing in
Are you
their
going
journey.
to punish them? Are you going to punish them for that? Like, if it's a
No,
paladin, for example,
I've been pretty steadfast where I'm like, okay, I don't tell them that they need to have an alignment at the start, but I sort of assume what they would be when they tell me their backstory and sort of like
so
character
you're
interaction.
tracking the alignment.
Yeah, I don't write it down. I sort of have it in mind in a sense where like, okay, this character feels more like chaotic neutral. I'm gonna let them see how they're playing it, and then sort
So
of
how
like
do you
see
use
okay,
that
how they're
information?
progressing along. Yeah.
How do you use
I
it?
feel like it is a good DM tool in a sense where you sort of know like, okay, there is like certain ways this character could be responding to situations. How can I change that? Like, for example, if there is an NPC that's coming again and again, and they start to build a relationship, and that's gonna affect how this person is gonna be making more decisions. So it is slowly going to be shifting, and it sort of gives you a nice perspective, especially like for a campaign like mine, which is based on morality and like based on the alignment system. It's really helpful. Like for example, in my like sort of homebrew world, there was this huge like event that happened many years ago, and the heroes that fought in it were like what would typical D&D like Faerun sort of lore would find as monsters. So the world has this, everyone in the world has this sort of like mindset where they are like, okay, heroes can come from anywhere, so we can't be rude to everyone. So I've sort of like negated the cultural sort of like um uh you know like cultural effects in that sense, and I've sort of made it more like, okay, it's more leaning towards what sort of tasks they do, or what sort of behavior they have, and that's where the people are more like going after. So in a setting like that, alignment comes in really handy, where I'm like, okay, this person is gonna hack through everyone, or this person is gonna uh, like lie their face off to get what they want done. So if people find out about that, how are they going to react? I know, like I would sort of look up and be like, okay, this person is chaotic. So people are like, this is like the city I'm sending them to depends on lawfulness. So I would be
So
like,
like,
okay, this person is going to be this element of chaos in this like really restrictive lawful city. So how are they going to interact with it? How is it going to like play out? And so it sort of helps out in that sense. And
how do
like
you
I
think
also
you would
So
think it's
the
not
alignment
something that
system
people should be
is. I
How do
think
you
the
think you-
alignment system is also quite poorly explained and codified.
Yeah.
In terms of, okay, you look at lawful good and people will think, oh, well, that's just going to be a good guy. It doesn't necessarily have to be
This
that
is-
way.
Yeah, this is actually what I was going to ask Aki. Like, how would you deal with a character who's lawful good but was raised in a city that considered elves to be pure evil, and so they would kill any elf that they came across? You know, I feel like
Right.
going along with Russell's point earlier, like I kind of like the more cultural, like, you know, growth kind of idea there more than alignment, because personally I feel like alignment's just a remnant from 3.5, which I prefer 3.5 alignment comparatively.
Yeah.
'cause
Well,
alignment
you
to me
guys
is
are
something.
you guys are aware that there are outer planes of existence in Dungeons and Dragons, like the
Yeah.
plane of elemental evil, right? I mean, are you literally saying that Hitler did what he did because the evil with a capital E came down out of the sky and possessed him and made him do evil stuff? Is that what happened? Because I don't think that's what happened. I think he lived through some shit, and he
Yeah.
was traumatized in some way, and he had some social programming that resulted in this thing that happened. It wasn't some supernatural shit that came from the plane of elemental evil. That's fucking nonsense.
I love how even
Like-
with the conversation on TTRPGs on a stream, we still like fall down on Godwin's law.
I was about to say that. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant.
Like,
Cool. Well,
answering
in-
Azul's question though, like if
Sorry,
for
sorry,
example, in your example, like in a chaotic city, and if there's like a lawfully good character, I would sort of need explanations other than him hating all orcs to why he's like going out to kill all orcs. Is there a reason? Like, does he have like a god or a demon that is saying, like if
Or
something is saying you
social
to like kill,
programming.
yeah, there needs to be like a reason lied out, and that's why I rely more on like what sort of ideologies they have and stuff like that. I usually get that jotted down, and I use that to like map out what alignment they might be.
Where does the ideology
So-
come from, though? That's the question. Like, you don't just wake up one day and you're evil.
Exactly.
It
Yeah.
doesn't
Although
happen
in
like
Faerun, it probably could happen like that. To be honest.
Corona could happen like that. That's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's like, okay, my father was killed by a bunch of orcs. That's why I hate orcs.
That's
I've got
the
an
majority
actual
of it. Yeah.
attached to an actual thing that actually happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not some magical alignment.
This
thing
is
to me.
this is why when
Yeah,
people
yeah.
say they've chosen like an evil character and they're just assholes to everyone, man, you pick any evil person in any world, they've still got people that work for them or are friends for them, and that's because they can show their evil when they need to. It's a cunning. It's not something that is just like
you're
an asshole to everyone.
obviously you play Strahd. I've recently I had to end. I'm playing an NPC. I'm playing Strahd in somebody else's campaign that
Nice.
they're DMing Strahd. So I spent a lot of time thinking about Strahd. And as a character, he is an evil character, and he's very psychotic and fucked up. But
Few
he doesn't
spoilers.
walk around
Few
going,
spoilers if
"I'm
possible."
so evil."
Yeah. Well, that's the one thing I've really tried with my version of Strahd. He has not done a single nasty thing to the players
Right.
yet. He's
And that
trying.
makes
He's like.
evil.
He's kind of like almost sympathetic in many ways. He's shared the story of the life and the loss and stuff, and they've been learning little bits that might not match what he's been telling them, but may match. And so, yeah. Oh, one of my players saying
called
he
out.
was very rude
He was
to us.
very rude to us.
Sorry, so I mean, come
I
on.
actually-
If that's the worst thing that Strahd can do to you is be a bit rude to
Be
you,
rude.
that's not
How
too
dare
bad.
he be rude?
Right.
In
It was
in this summer season of Season Quest, I play sort of an outright evil character, but it is a character that tries, in a way, very hard to work with the party because he's basically using them to get to his wants and needs, and it's eventually that he wants to get power. So it's like you can play an evil character in a way that is still helpful to the rest of the people.
Right. As
If
long as
you-
your goals align, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
The original question with mechanics and stuff, a mechanic I immediately drop, and I might get some agreement. It's the encumbrance carry weight.
Yes, that totally.
Yes.
Who gives a
Yeah.
shit?
Why would you do that, eh?
For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Oh God.
For sure. That is a
Fantastic.
ridiculous system.
Yeah.
It is.
Awesome. All right. Well, I don't know about you guys. It's I think we've had a pretty robust discussion. Any final thoughts on my question to Russell regarding homebrew mechanics?
I had one last thing I was going to say. I actually did add a mechanic at one point, and then I
Ooh.
promptly retracted it because it was vastly overcomplicated. That's the other thing. Is like when I do add mechanics, they just don't work. Like, I had this whole idea in my world. There's two suns, right? And in Sidarhael, there are two suns, and they interweave sort of as they cross the sky. And this creates this. The magical effects, the magical fields affect the world in ways. And I created this chart that you could roll on whenever you cast a spell, where your spells would either be improved or some effect. would
Which is
happen
cool.
to
That's a
them.
cool idea.
It is kind of a cool idea, but players looked at it and went, nah.
Yeah. My take is like there's so much depth to the rules that already exist that most campaigns, most DMs do not even use all of the rules that are already there.
Yeah.
No matter what. Like,
Yeah.
To
And
start,
do you think
to start
How-
adding
how-
in homebrew stuff when there's perfectly like designed stuff that works in the book that no one uses, I mean, you might as well just read the DM's guide and start picking up some new stuff that you don't already do.
Can I ask one last question? From like, I want to know how important do you guys think it is as a DM, especially running a podcast or a stream? How important is it to know the rules?
Very. I think it's critical to be able to make. I mean, and I think that's.
Do you know all the rules, Zach?
No, I don't. So I'm a hypocrite, but I think in terms of podcasting, it's not quite so bad because you can take a moment to look up a rule and then keep on going. But I think in terms of keeping up pace and all that kind of thing, you need to be able to have the ability to either know the rules or make the appropriate call, kind of not at the drop of a hat, but quickly to keep flow going. If you're having to stop every 10 minutes because you need to look up how a death saving throw works or how exhaustion works or whatever, that just kills the flow for me.
Yeah.
I think it's important to have a really good grasp of the core rules.
Well, because conversely, you could just make a call. As you don't know the rules, so you just make a call.
And as long as you're consistent.
Without knowing the basis of the rules, hard to keep those calls consistent.
That's it. Consistency is everything, isn't it?
Yeah. I knew almost nothing on the first session I DM'd for Getting Dicey.
Whoa.
I had been a player for 2 years, and that was my only experience with D&D. And then we were starting a new campaign, and I was like, I'll DM. I've never done this before. And I just started. And I kind of read over like the scenario, but I didn't really read any of the rules because I figured I knew it all from being a player. But I quickly learned that I had no idea what the majority of the rules were, but it was okay because people would be like, because everyone already has, our players already had some understanding of a lot of the rules of different pockets of things. And so
it's some player with a character class or a feat or something you've never struck before.
And it's for the majority, I'm like, look, if you guys can't tell me what your stuff does, then you guys need to research your stuff better because I'm not going to tell you what your character can do. And everything else is a dice roll for the most part. So I don't think knowing the rules is as important, especially for streaming and probably podcasting. It's not as important as being entertaining.
Yeah, I kind of agree, kind of disagree with that because with D&D at least, I feel like 5e is kind of made so that you can know the minimum rules and still have a really fulfilling session.
I agree.
Not so much if you consider other TTRPGs. Like we have to learn new RPGs every single time we record something, and it is sometimes can get quite hectic. And like as the DM, there have been times this is turning into a confession booth for me when like I've turned up to the recording with all the players looking at me, and I've been like, cool. So I've only like skimmed through the rule book. I have no idea what I'm getting into, and that does slow down gameplay quite a bit, and it makes editing it way worse. And
I've sort of felt like it's important to know the basics, like how the combat works, how the initiative works, and just the really basic stuff that you need to play the game. But other than that, it is mostly like circumstantial. Like I would say, if I'm facing like an enemy who's going to be paralyzing people, I better know what's paralyzing and know what can do.
Sure.
I feel like it is just knowledge enough for that session because I've sometimes felt that if I know more stuff and like if I know every rule for each session, at some point I'm not going to be able to draw the one that is required for that particular time. And I'm going to be having like other things coming in and interfering me, and it's going to be clashing at one point. And honestly, I've always felt like the vast amount of rules are like really intimidating to get started into the game. So like I've always sort of gone about it in a way where I'm like, okay, I'll get started. I'll start with the story, and I'm sort of focusing on I know how to play the game and how to like set the scene and do the basics of a D&D game. What else can I learn? And I sort of go by each situation where I'm like, okay, if my player is correcting me that I should have done this way, I'm like, okay, because usually I've been like playing with a lot of experienced players and like people who have DM'd me. So like they sort of know where I might be going wrong. And usually like after a session, I like to sort of run with them and sort of like have a quick conversation about like any feedbacks and any stuff like that where I'm like, okay, do you think there's a place where I went wrong? And some places I'm like, okay, I went wrong and the outcome is good. So I'm going to not tell them that I've gone wrong, and I'm going to be like, that's intentional, and I'm going to note that down, and I'm going to be like, okay, that's my new rule, and I'm going to be working with that rather than something that is already there. Because I feel like being a homebrew, that is the best part, is you can just move around stuff. Like coming back to the mechanics question, like I love mechanics. I find it really like helpful, like giving that randomness to everything that people do. Because like for example, I've felt like if I have a new mechanic that I'm coming up, I know how it works, and it's much easier rather than like going off something that is written and like me sort of like having a good knowledge about it and then relaying it to my players and making sure they have a good knowledge about it. Instead, if I have a mechanic of my own, I can sort of be like, okay, this and this is how it works, and you explore how you want it to, how you can explore it. And as they do things, I can sort of explain, okay, for this particular choice, this is the outcome, and it's much more like free flowing in a way to like not know that much of the rules, and like just sort of like letting the story and letting the choices make the like progress rather than like this being, because I feel like at some point it would get to a point where like if we are sticking quite close to like rules, it's gonna get to a point where it feels like a game rather than an immersive experience.
That's very true. If you've got a lot of mechanics,
an immersive experience is what we are aiming for rather than a game.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, for me, I think I started playing D&D with a group in Dunedin of very power gamery people. So just through osmosis, I got just so many rules just on lock up here. Nice. Unfortunately, I think there's a reasonable expectation for the way a game goes, and if you just follow that along, then you're golden. Yeah, and make up shit along the way.
Yeah,
absolutely. I think that's the motto that every DM can have possibly tattooed on their body is just make shit up. And look, at the end of the day, so long as you as the DM are having fun, and so long as the players are having fun, and for those of us who stream and podcast, so long as the people who listen and engage are listening and engaging and having fun, well then you've succeeded, really. I think.
Fuck yeah.
Speaking of having fun, we've got a question in from one of the people in the chat, which just wanted to know, out of all of the campaigns you're currently playing, what is the total number of dragons that have been taken out by your players?
None.
yeah, big zilch for me.
One spoiler for summer, but there's one dragon that gets killed.
Nice.
Change the name of it to Dungeons and Goblins or something.
yeah.
Also, I must confess, in Dungeons and Dipshits, we also haven't been into a dungeon yet. So
right. So
it's not Dungeons or Dragons. It's just
It's
ampersand.
Yeah.
Do you make up for that, Zach, with the dipshit part, or is that lacking as well?
No. We absolutely
proud to be a dipshit. Isn't that right, Zach?
Like my dragon count is one of my campaigns is gonna get a dragon the following session. I'm not gonna tell which campaign. So
but will they kill it? That's the thing. Will they kill it?
I have a dragon in one of my campaigns, but it's not an online campaign. Unfortunately, it's not a stream, and it doesn't count the Yawning Portal. What is it? The Sunless Citadel has a baby dragon in it too, which that doesn't count. Yeah. Awesome. But there is a blue dragon in one of my scenarios called Mesariah.
That's a good name. That's a good dragon name.
I love that.
I've actually like done situations where like they encounter dragons who are like in human form, so like they don't know they're talking to a dragon. And I've done that too. Like 7 times now. Nobody
love
gets
a silver dragon.
I'm really excited for the Dragonlance books coming out. The new round.
Yeah.
I love Dragonlance in the 80s and 90s. Yeah. It's coming back. There needs to be a movie. It needs to be a series. It needs the Game of Thrones budget. Hordes of dragons and lances clashing in the sky in glorious, massive city.
Maybe the 21st century will finally have the best D&D movie ever.
Hopefully.
Not likely.
We just got a raid, by the way.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're just going to be a big thank you to TT2KB, who are good friends with Getting Dicey, rating us with a party of 18. So, hi, welcome. Just as we're wrapping up for the night. So
yeah. Just great timing, guys.
Send them forward.
Just stuck a new battery in there if you want to keep going.
Normally we wrap up around 10 o'clock when we play, but that's tomorrow night. Tomorrow night, Curse of Stride, episode 40. It's going to be where it's at.
Brilliant. All right. Well, look, I mean, we've got through all of our questions. I think we've had a really, really good. I think there's been a really good talk.
It's been great.
Interesting. We got on some really, really good topics.
I really enjoyed it.
It's great to get to know you guys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, enjoyed
Look,
it.
to finish up, why don't we all just go around again and introduce yourselves and do a bit of a promo for your stream and or podcast. Azul, why don't we start with you, bud?
Sure. So introducing myself again, I'm Azul from Don't Forget Your Tile podcast. You can find us on Twitter at DFYT_podcast, which is our main platform. We are a podcast where we aspire to play every RPG in existence or die trying, and the death seems much more likely so far. But that's us.
You should type in your URL in the chat.
Yeah, chuck it up in the chat.
If that's allowed with the mods.
Absolutely it is.
Thank you. Here we go.
Nice.
That is us. Oh, I should probably put like a streaming link as well, eh?
If you stream, for sure.
Sorry, not stream. The
Oh, your podcast? Yeah, gotcha.
Awesome, Charlie. Why don't you
Sweet,
continue on?
I've been Charlie from Season Quest. We just finished our summer campaign, and we're finishing up, or we're starting, autumn now. So tune in there at Season Quest Pod. I just got messaged that because I always forget it in the podcast. And then after that, we're going to do some small anthology series with court dramas and Pokemon and all that sort of stuff. So that's something else to look forward to in the future.
Wow.
Awesome. Cool. Well, Reagan, you might as well.
You can find me here on this very channel or anywhere. If you just type in Getting Dicey, all the social medias or wherever you get your podcasts, or on YouTube, it's all everywhere. And we're playing Curse of Strahd. It's getting very, very good at this point, with a big horde of wolves and werewolves showing up to bare their teeth.
Nice. Russell?
I'm Russell Kirkby. My podcast, well, it's not a podcast, it's a stream. It's called Veingate, the Veingate Chronicles. It can be found here on my Twitch channel. I also make YouTube videos about Dungeons and Dragons, which you can find here. And I copied and pasted it while I was waiting for you guys. So really efficient.
Fantastic. Awesome. No, that's been great. I have been.
Could I plug something?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Hi. Hi, I'm Aki. I have a podcast that I'm working on. It's titled Quests of Arganda. It is set in the world that I just basically described over the whole stream. Yeah, I'm looking for players if anyone's interested and wants to appear on camera and do a podcast.
Yeah, how can they find you? How can they find you if they want to?
I'm going to put up a post on Facebook, hopefully, someday. And yeah. Thanks
like
for
just on the
having me
on the
that.
New Zealand.
Really nice to. Sorry.
Are you just going to put it up in like the New Zealand D&D Facebook?
Yeah, I'm going to be putting up a post about describing the campaign and just what sort of players and what sort of stuff we would be doing in all the Facebook groups where D&D stuff happen in New Zealand. And yeah, hit me up. And yeah, it was nice having being here with the veterans of podcasting world and D&D world. And yeah, thanks for welcoming on.
Sorry, I interrupted you. I was just suddenly curious how long everybody's been doing their thing for, because I haven't been going very long at all. I'm imagining some of you guys have been going much longer than I have.
I know that Season Quest's been going for a while, right? No?
Since lockdown last year. Yeah.
Okay.
That is still a while for me. We've only been going since September last year. So
okay.
Wait, I think so. I don't remember.
Yeah.
I started YouTubing around then, but I didn't start streaming until December, I think.
Right. So how about you, Regan?
Oh yeah, this is the start of Getting Dicey's third year.
Wow.
Nice.
You're the veteran.
You're the real veteran. Oh well, how about Dungeons and Dipshits is relatively recent new as well, right? Does that?
Yeah. We've really only been going since probably September, August last year as well. Similar time as Season Quest. I think they beat us onto the scene by a couple of weeks. Although to be fair, we have released far less than they have. I think Charlie, you're up to like episode 40 or something like that, aren't you?
Probably. I don't listen to it.
I distinctively remember you guys' posts on the Facebook groups, like right after we started. I was like, look, these other groups are joining us.
Wow.
Fantastic, awesome. Well, look, thank you so much to Reagan and the Getting Dicing, getting Dicing. It's like Getting Dicey, but it's their alternative cooking
spin-off.
show.
Yeah.
You should check it out. Thank you to Reagan and the Getting Dicey Twitch stream for allowing us on. Thanks to all of our members: Aki, Azul, Charlie, Reagan, Russell, Craig, who's been strangely silent this entire
Craig.
thing. And
Unbelievable.
yeah, look, I have been Zach. I'm the Dungeon Master for Dungeons and Dipshits. I've put our website into the
Oh,
chat.
you've got a website.
Fancy.
Oh,
Even
yeah,
I don't
man.
have a website.
Shit.
I've got a website. I'm going to put my website in.
Please
Yeah.
I
do.
have a Twitter.
I want everyone in the
Yeah.
chat to go and check out all of these podcasts and streams because it's all about sharing the NZ love here. So please.
Would a MySpace account be eligible for this?
Put it up.
Why you
Put it, if you've got a Bebo or MySpace, please do promote it
I'm
in
gonna
the
make
chat.
my goal to throw in one MySpace joke whenever I can.
Awesome.
Beautiful.
Well, look, thank you so much for participating in this, guys. It's been a huge amount of fun. I've certainly learned quite a bit actually from listening to everyone else talk, and I hope everyone else has too. So yeah, thank you very much, guys, and we'll do this again sometime soon. I might get all the DMs together to run a one shot because there's no possible way that could go wrong. Not at all.
We should take turns running one shots with each other. Wouldn't that
Would
be
love that. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Keen.
Sweet.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you,
All
everyone.
right. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Cheers.
All right.